Joining us now to give some greater perspective on what is happening is Volodymyr Yermolenko, chief editor at Ukraine World. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we were just looking at the pictures there from here, from our aerial vantage point. It does look peaceful to us. What is it like for you there? How has it changed in the last 24 hours?
Well, you rightly said that basically Kiev is very calm, but at the same time very tense. There are checkpoints everywhere. There are many people who joined the territorial defense. Those people who left the cities are mostly women and children. Kiev mayor says that there are still 2 million people in Kiev. Kiev is well protected, actually, from the anti-air systems. The battles are in the suburbs mostly, and Ukrainians are showing that they are able to stop the land invasion with their anti-tank missiles. The key problem, I think, is whether the Russians will be bombarding Kiev from the skies, from the airplanes, and whether they will use systems of like fire, like Grad systems or some other rocket missiles fire against the city. But the city is very decisive to defend itself.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are concerns. The more that President Putin is frustrated, there are concerns the more barbaric he may be in terms of his attack on places like Kiev, just wanting to flatten the city. I mean, as someone who is there, and obviously, you know people on the ground there, I mean, how do you even begin to cope with that hanging over you?
Well, doesn't make any sense to think about it if you're staying in the city. As I said, if, for example, Russians are entering on land, they will face fierce opposition because many people are now in the territorial defense with their Kalashnikovs and are ready for street fights. But of course, you say if the Putin is getting more barbaric. Well, he's already barbaric, a remarkable, inhumane war, which can only be compared with Hitler and with all other atrocities of the 20th century. Obviously, Putin is now really wanting to destroy Ukraine as a nation. And in fact, he's destroying Russia as a country, as a nation at the same time. So this is a syndrome of a wounded empire which tries to regain the territories which it thinks are their own with huge destruction, but actually is shooting in its leg and destroying itself. But what was today very important this night is that there was a missiles attack on Novoyavorivsk in Lviv Oblast, and it's only 20 kilometers from the NATO-EU border. And I think NATO should also realize that Russians are waging a war against NATO for a long time already, and they are approaching NATO borders.
Do you, Volodymyr, given the conflict between these two countries for at least 8 years, do you blame solely Putin and the Russians at this point, or do you have some anger towards the American president, perhaps at this time, and also NATO? Were we caught napping? Do you feel that they hold some element of responsibility?
I blame Russians, of course, not only Putin, but Russians, because Russians are supporting Putin. You see the major support. And unfortunately, this nation just go to the insanity, the insane fantasies of Mr. Putin, which are spread through his propaganda. You should understand that for these 8 or even more years, Russian state TV just was filled with hate speech towards Ukrainians, Europeans, etc. And this is what we were in Ukraine. The people who are dealing with information were showing to Europeans, to Americans all this time. I think the West's action is very good right now, with only one little point, that it would be okay for 2014, the beginning of the war. So it's delaying, it's lagging behind actually the events, and of course the unwillingness to provide Ukraine with, for example, example, with fighter jets is very deplorable. But Ukraine really needs more ammunition, more armament, and primarily anti-air systems, because basically Russians, as you see, do not have any advantage on the ground, on the land, but they have advantage in the skies. Therefore, they are bombing Ukrainian cities, hospitals, maternity houses, green corridors. You see all these atrocities that they are doing, and basically they're waging the war against civilians, not Ukrainian army.
Okay. Volodymyr Yermolenko, appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.